My wife got a federal job offer for 42% more than she makes now, which is almost my entire salary. It also comes with a pension, better benefits, and $20K relocation in a lump sum. We bought a new build house in Texas almost 2 years ago, so we would have to sell it first. I believe we get taxed on that if we sell before 2 years. We bought it for $270K, and I think we could sell it for $340, $350K according to our realtor. I could likely get a job in the city we are moving to, on the East Coast, for similar to what I make now. We have 2 leased cars that are both up in 1 month. Is this a smart move? I don't want to make a financial mistake.
Moving from Texas to Buffalo is going to be a huge pay bump. Cost of living calculators aren't really accurate for the Buffalo area. We moved here 2 years ago, and though housing prices have blown up a few $100, the bump is because homes 4 years ago were going for $40.80, and now they're going for mid-200s. Homes you can get here for $350 plus are huge and in very nice areas. Taxes are expensive in the burbs, but the city proper is still cheap. For example, our house is valued at $235, 2-level with finished attic, full basement 1300 SQFT, and a small yard and garage in nice neighborhood near downtown. Right now, and we pay $950 a year. Beyond that, food is cheap. Utilities are slightly below AVG comparatively. Our insurance is about the same as other places we've lived. The only big downside is the lack of dierstures, which means it just takes a long time to establish your dierstures. Took us about 3 months to get a new patient appointment, but after it's been normal. Schools are complicated and a pain in the ass. However, making over $80K in Buffalo basically means you're rich.
There are too many things to consider that are above and beyond just cost of living. It definitely seems worthwhile to make sure you time this move to be sure you guys get your 2 years in at your current house, so the capital gains on that house aren't taxable, even if it means she moves first and while you follow for good a little later. But there are so many lifestyle differences, it really comes down to whether you want to move or not. For example, if you're in Austin, there's no place quite like Austin on the East Coast and you might miss it. There are music towns and college towns and foodie towns and motorsports towns, but no place else has a large university and Circuit of the Americas and South by Southwest and Willie and Austin city limits and all. Those food trucks. Can you tell I really liked my time in Austin? Also, if you're in other parts of Texas, there's no place quite like Texas on the East Coast, and you might miss it. Or you might be eternally grateful you were able to get out. But Texas is very much its own thing, and some people love it and can't bear to think of leaving. And on the other hand, I promise you, of all the things you can say about people in DC or NY or Philly or Boston, they have no idea how much larger a house they could live in if they moved to Texas. Is not one of them. Everybody in the finance capital of the Western world, or the medical center of the Western world, or the seat of government power of the Western world, knows good and well how much larger a house they could afford if they moved to Plano. Not many of them care to. You can almost feel the history walking through Georgetown or Old Town Alexandria or Boston Commons, where history dates to the colonial era and George Washington slept here for real. You might wind up living in a home that is older than the United States, which can be kind of cool. I stayed in a place for work once that was an inn in the 1760s, with a fireplace where Patrick Henry and the Sons of Liberty used to drink mead and talk about overthrowing King George III and running stuff for themselves. The Alamo was cool and all, but it ain't got nothing on that. And as John Updike once wrote, the true New Yorker secretly believes that people living anywhere else have to be, in some sense, kidding. If your wife has a job in the federal government with a good career track, that's a really good long-term thing, with a chance to have a great future and to really make a difference.
As someone from Buffalo, let me give you an idea of life in town. There's effectively no public transport, and parking downtown is a nightmare, though I imagine it's the same in Houston. The roads are falling apart at the seams, so make sure your car had good suspension. This past Christmas, we had record-breaking snows that caused even the surrounding suburbs to enact travel bans for 5 straight days. Buffalo is also one of the most segregated cities in the U.S. Why, I don't know, but I've seen the stat. The suburbs are wide-sprawled and don't have a lot within what I consider walking distance, but perhaps to some you'd say it is. Bike infrastructure is effectively none, with a lot of places having signs for bikes in lane. Nike's taxes are for sure higher than whatever you pay in Houston. With all that said, I love Buffalo. First off, it's cheap compared to a lot of places. I also don't mind the snow. It's nice to have diverse weather through the year, and I know how to deal with it. Be scared of driving in the snow, it's doable. But if you haven't done it before, be careful. There's so many food options from many different cultures, and I'm rarely disappointed. There's so many national parks close by. Niagara Falls is even better than people tell you it is. You can visit Canada, Toronto for a weekend, no problem. Neighbors are super friendly. Your average Joe on the street isn't great, but as I've moved houses, and I get the same story from friends, neighbors are always super inviting into the neighborhood. The city is obsessed with the Bills, so get ready to be a football fan. There's a lot of good school districts for families and a ton of local colleges, especially UB, which is a world-class institution. There's very limited traffic, so once you're near the highways that surround the city, anywhere you're going is 20 minutes easy. I know this turned into less financial advice and more social advice, but honestly, that's my advice about jobs. Take one that makes you happy, in a place that makes you happy. If you truly don't care and can afford to move, then take more money. Hell, rent your house in Houston out and gain some extra income while you're in NY too. Give a new experience a try. You can always try to move back if you find you don't like it.
Financially, it makes sense. If your wife will be making what is your current combined income, that means you have some time to find a new job there and not fall behind. That does depend on the cost of living, though. As for the house, how close to 2 years are you? If you wait a few months to sell, the cost of mortgage interest for that time will be less than the capital gains. But that all depends on your property tax rate and mortgage rate, so it might make sense to wait to sell. If you've never lived in this new location, I wouldn't buy a new house right away anyway. I think renting for 6 months to a year while you learn the lay of the land and figure out where your new community ends up being, the jobs, your hobbies, etc. Then you can use your profit from the sale as a down payment somewhere. Personally, totally different question. Will you be leaving your friends and family behind? Is the community and way of life in the new place what you want? Are your interests and hobbies compatible with the East Coast? Just some food for thought. Make sure you think about that as well.
As someone who grew up in the Buffalo area, it would take a 100% increase in pay for me to even consider it again. So much snow.